Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the podcast studio. It is Growing Upstairs with your host, Holden and
Noah.
Man, we're so glad to have you guys back here. We have a special guest with us this week, a special guest on the podcast. We've kind of talked about and teased back and forth whether or not we were going to get some extra people to come on with us. And this week, we've decided to get Gramps to come on with us. What's going on, Gramps?
Man, it's just been a busy but fun week so far.
It has been a busy week. It's been a busy Wednesday. We had kickoff tonight. We had how many did we end up with?
64.
64 kids.
64.
For some churches, I don't know, big churches, it may be like, oh, that's a Sunday night, but for us, that's a good number.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's such a fun number to have. Well, this is Growing Upstairs. Like I said, we've got Noah here. We've got Gramps here. It's me, Holden. We're going to have a lot of fun with this that we're getting into. First and foremost, let Noah tell you guys where you can find us as far as socials go.
That's right. Don't forget, if you're new, if you're a returning listener, you can find us on Instagram at GrowingUpstairs, where we're going to be continuing to post some sound bits from the show, and make sure you get in weekly when we do those questionnaires if you want to be featured on the show.
Yeah. So, we made a reference on like the first week or the second week of Gramps and what exactly as far as all right, so quick caveat real quick. A microphone just about took Gramps out in the very beginning of this thing. Don't know what I was talking about. Luckily, Gramps caught the microphone, and we're not going to start over, but we're just going to keep going. Don't know what I was talking about, to be honest with you. But Gramps is here. We're excited to have him. We're going to have a lot of fun with this episode. Last week, obviously, we weren't here because there was a hurricane that was coming through that was kind of around us, kind of not, and we ended up having to cancel all of our services. So Noah and I also decided to pull the plug and not record last week. So that's why you didn't get an episode last week, but we're back this week. All right, the purpose of this show is we're growing with God together. We talk about Jesus, life, and music. A lot of fun, and that's what we're going to do. So as we do every week, we're going to go to Gramps on this one. But Noah, I'm going to let you start it off. How have things been over the last 2 weeks now, since it's been that long since we – I know.
Last 2 weeks. Honestly, things have been pretty good. Got the day off for the hurricane, so really took that day to kind of relax. The weather really didn't end up being as bad, I guess, as they thought it was going to be, but definitely want to take a moment to extend our thoughts and prayers to those who were seriously impacted by the hurricane. I mean, so that, and got to watch some football last weekend. It was good to see college football back. Got to watch Florida State win. Georgia Southern won. It was a good weekend.
That's a good weekend coming off. That was my next topic, was we had youth kickoff, but then we also had college football kickoff. But how about you, Gramps, last 2 weeks? What you been up to? Really, what you been up to the last month and a half since we started this thing?
Yeah, right, isn't it? No, it's just been busy. It's, again, we're, like you said, I love this podcast, Growing in the Upstairs, and, of course, we are here, as we said a minute ago, 64 and youth, and like you said, some churches that may not be much for, but when your youth group's been down for a while and you're rebuilding a program, that's just awesome. That's signs that God's working.
That's right.
We're growing in the upstairs. And then, of course, I do a lot to help out with our local schools, and we've got FCA programs going on right now. And, of course, one of our schools had a first chapel service today, and it was awesome, and our youth are helping out with that. So, again, just continuing to grow all over.
Woo-woo. Speaking of growing a program, that's where we jump right into college football usually, and growing a program right there. Well, that's awesome. For me, it's been kind of the same. Last we had talked was my son we had to take him to the hospital and had some stuff going on with RSV and everything. Luckily, he's great. I mean, he's bounced. I mean, kids are troopers, and he's bounced.
Playground tonight.
He's bounced back like nothing's ever even happened. And so we're grateful for that. Same thing. We took the day off, and it rained a little bit, which was nice, but that was kind of the majority of it.
I did lose power for about 45 minutes.
Were you stressing a little bit there?
Well, I had just put a load of clothes in the washer, and the power decides to go off, so I'm just sitting there with a full load of clothes just chilling.
Twiddling your thumbs, thinking, well, what do I do now?
But I went outside. Well, no, I didn't go outside. It was flooding outside. But I sat with Riley and my dog and just had a good day, enjoyed just chilling until the power came back on.
Yeah.
Then I kept doing my chores.
It's thrown everything off for the past 2 weeks for me, though. So that's Wednesday last week that it takes it out. Nobody worked. So then you had Thursday, Friday, boom, weekend. Then Monday's a holiday with Labor Day. So then Tuesday was the Mondayest Tuesday that there's ever been, and then last Thursday was the Mondayest Thursday that.
Oh yeah,
it's been a complicated couple of weeks. I'll be glad next week, Lord willing, that everything goes the way it's supposed to. We kind of get back into a normal routine of life, because sometimes that's the way it is. You just get those curveballs.
Day to day, and y'all do know y'all have got me out way past my bedtime right now.
I think it's past everybody's bedtime.
That's true.
We all went out to eat, and I mean, I don't think we've ever had that many kids in a restaurant.
Hey, I don't think so either.
It's a good problem to have, like we said. All right, let's start off with a fun topic right now, and this one's kind of a quirky one, but I think it's kind of funny too. If you had to lose one of your senses forever, but one of the other senses that you had was heightened like 10 times stronger, what would it be and why? So obviously there's seeing, smelling, touch, taste, and hearing. If you had to lose, and I'll start with you, Noah, or I'll tell you what, I'll go first. If you had to lose one of these senses, but the other one's heightened times 10. For me, I already can't really hear, so that's not the end of the world. So I think I would get rid of hearing and heighten my vision 10 times. Because how cool would it be to be like, oh, yeah, I can see, 3 miles down the road and what's going on down there. I can't hear what's going on, but I can see what's going on down there anyways. So that's kind of the way I was questioning this thing. So, Noah, what do you think?
I think I would do the opposite.
Okay.
I think I would lose my vision and be able to hear everything.
That's pretty good, too.
Because just think about how funny it would be just to walk into a conversation and everybody know that you can't see, that you're blind, and that they don't think you're going to pick on to what they're doing, but you can hear movements and everything. I think that would be kind of funny.
That's not a bad. I mean, people have lived without each and every one of them, so this isn't just a topic of something that people, aren't dealing with on a day-to-day basis. There's people that can't see. There's people that can't hear. I'm one of the people that can't hear. What'd you say? But anyways, Gramps, if you got to do the same question, they're one of the 5.
Yeah, and y'all know me. Of course, everybody else will learn me, I guess, if I do this long enough.
That's right.
Mine's kind of like what Noah said. I would let the hearing increase and the sight be the one I lost, and I say that because, as you two guys know, I'm very OCD. I'm very organized. So, and I know you don't think about this, but you think about how life goes sometimes. And I was like, well, what if I went blind? I think I could still get around my home and everything because it's so organized. I know I can near about walk through it now in the dark, pitch black when the electricity goes out, storms.
Yeah.
I can get around, but I would want to be able to hear what's coming a little bit
Can
better.
at least hear. I notice, go ahead.
There's a Bible lesson.
There's a Bible lesson
somewhere.
coming out of this.
There's a lesson in there somewhere.
Coming to a church near you on Sunday morning. Why you should hear but not see. I noticed none of us had this, and I think
we walk by faith, not by sight.
I think there is another part to it that none of us said, and part of it I think is because of the C word that's going around. But losing your smell is tough because you don't know if you stink, you don't know if your neighbor stinks, you don't know about what stinks.
You can't even taste coffee.
But the taste is one I could not do without taste. Well, then again, I mean, I could get in pretty good shape if I couldn't taste what kale tastes like that you're eating or eating a salad every day. It's like I can't taste it anyway. But taste would be, I think, the hardest of all of them to lose. Yeah. What do y'all say on that?
Oh, yeah.
I would think so. Because, I mean, hey, you got to enjoy something if you can't see.
I mean, somebody's eventually going to be like, hey, man, you need to go take a shower or put some deodorant on, right? But they can't be like, oh, yeah, that cake is delicious. Too bad you can't taste it.
Yep.
At least with the smell, it's like that. All right. So that's one of the funny topics. I have one other one. Do you guys know what police jargon is? Like the police phonic alphabet?
Never heard of it.
So it's like the ABC. So A is like alpha, B is beta, or it goes like that.
Like Echo,
Echo, Charlie, Bravo, stuff like that. Okay. So I heard this thing the other day and I died laughing. And it's if you took, what are some terms that you could take in place of them? For example, P, the police alphabet for it is Paul. They say Paul for P, and you change it to, I don't know, pants, which is not necessarily the funniest one, but this is the one I heard. It's E for echo, changed to enchilada. If you change letters, so from what it would be like, I made the suggestion, L is Lima, change it to llama. So could you imagine these cops running around there like, llama enchilada burrito, while you're running around out there? If you had to think of a letter like that, and I don't know.
Sounds like what I just ate at Mama Rita's tonight.
I just ate, yeah.
I think maybe we need to come up with some of those for the church work leader
Yeah.
here
Y'all want to go get a Charlie llama?
so we can know what we're doing with these youth that we're running over out the borders with, and be able to kind of communicate with each other without them knowing.
That's very true. All right, last question for you guys. Speaking of us just getting done eating something, are you supposed to pray for leftovers? You already prayed for them one time. You supposed to bust out another prayer, say, Lord, this that I already... Listen, this spaghetti, it's Lord, it's me with the spaghetti again, from yesterday. Am I supposed to pray over it again?
You're
a
talking
second
to
time.
Gramps here, preacher. Give thanks all the time for everything. So
what?
He provided it the first time, but hey, he's providing it the leftovers. So,
question for you though: what happens if I pray for that spaghetti a second time and I get food poisoning off of that second time? You think what you reckon's going on there?
maybe you should be praying a little bit more on when you should dispose of it.
Maybe I'm praying about the wrong part of it. Is that what it is?
How long are you keeping your leftovers?
Got to use
That's
the
a good-
wisdom
that's a
there
good
at some point.
That's a good point too. Those sniffer. Hey, it pays to smell, right? Again,
right.
we're talking about losing our sight and our vision. We ain't talking about losing our smell and our taste, and there's a reason. But I thought that was kind of
When
funny.
it starts growing stuff, you really should throw it out, Holden.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Noah, you got some funny stories for us tonight?
Man, I have one that they have really been wanting us to share. And it couldn't have been a more perfect time for Gramps to join us on the podcast.
Oh, boy.
Because this one involves him.
Oh, boy.
A lot of them do.
So it's good to be back in the podcast studio. It's good to be back telling stories during story time. And this last week, whenever we put out our question for people to talk about a fun time or a memorable time in youth, we had one of our youth bring up the pizza story.
The what?
The pizza story.
You may have to recall.
Pizza.
Oh, so Gramps, you got to remember the pizza story from this past year at Fuge.
I'm gonna sit back.
yes.
I'm gonna sit back
Yeah,
on this
okay,
one, but
yeah.
y'all tell me
My
this story
memory
because I've heard bits and pieces, but it's
Pizza
time.
boy.
It's time to
Yeah.
hear the actual story.
So, basically, and Gramps, jump in and cut me off. Tell your side of it as well. I don't necessarily know if this is funny or if it's
Well, it
more.
is funny in the end, but at the moment it wasn't.
So basically, pretty much, at Fuge, we get back to our room that night, and the way we were staying were me and Gramps and some of our other youth were in a room on the bottom floor, and some of the guys were in a room on the top floor. Well, pretty much all week long, they had been saying, we need to order DoorDash, or we need to order pizza, or we need to order Taco Bell, this, that, and the other, because we get hungry after worship service at night. And Gramps kind of went along and said, if you want to do that, you just need to let me know, and we'll take care of it, and we'll have it back at the room for when we get done at night. Well, you think they followed those rules?
You know how many youth have a cell phone and know how to DoorDash now?
Dude.
Evidently more than we thought.
So I get this phone call after, it was probably past midnight?
It was getting close.
It was that late?
Yeah.
I
Oh
was
my
up-
goodness.
They called me up a little bit after midnight, or right there at midnight.
Yeah, it was late. And the phone rings, and it was one of our youth in the upper room, and he's like, Noah, you got to come upstairs. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And so I go upstairs. I was kind of just expecting them to be cutting up and have some type of joke. Well, I walk in, and they're pointing towards the refrigerator. There was a refrigerator and counter in this kitchen area of this dorm.
Never a good sign.
And they're just pointing. They're like, go get you some. And I walk over there, and there are 2 boxes from Domino's.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, what have y'all done? And so, I'm not going to lie. I grabbed a piece of the pizza, man. The Supreme...
Pizza.
He's still a leader in training.
I'm working on my leadership skills, okay? The temptation was there that night. The Supreme Pizza was calling my name. And so I grabbed a piece of this pizza. So the same guy who had called me up, he decides it'd be a great idea to call Gramps. And he's like, we got to get him up here. We got to get Gramps up here. And with that, I'll kind of let him step in and tell a little bit of his side of the story, because
Yeah, well, it's a typical youth story. They all week long we've been telling them, no, you can't order it that late at night. There's a curfew, by the way. Fuge has a curfew. You're supposed to be in by 11. lights out by 11 actually, and or maybe it's in at 11, lights out 11:30. So we're way past. We're not way past, but we're past that by now. And of course, I think Noah they were so excited because they wanted to appreciate you as a youth minister. And this is where youth ministry gets hard, because they want to appreciate you, and you really do appreciate the thought. But then when you get up there, the hilarious part of it to me is they're trying to get me to just come over and grab a piece of pizza and get in this picture. And of course, I guess that's maybe some of the wisdom of, being in leadership for years. I was like, I am not getting in any picture until y'all tell me what's going on. Well, they're calling the girls' dorms, and they're kind of showing them and want me in this picture of them FaceTiming the girls with pizza, and then they have no pizza for the girls.
Oh no, I didn't realize they didn't have it.
Out.
And
so this starts the downward spiral, but it's typical teenage boys. They don't give up. They're going to keep throwing themselves under. And so they're like trying to get me in this picture. Luckily, I didn't get in it. Then the girls are upset, and then they want to know where their pizza is. And then the guys are asking me, can they order pizza? And I'm like, y'all, it's after midnight now, and I either got to go get it, or we're really going to have the feud staff looking at us. And how are we going to get this in the girls' dorm area where no guys are supposed to be? And so I guess the thing that got me the most, in which Noah will tell you, and that's typical youth minister at the moment, I'm getting a little more frustrated, and I have to kind of bring them down to reality. And they were like talking to the girls, and they were like, one of them said, well, tell them Gramps said no. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Gramps ain't had nothing to do with this.
Throwing me under the bus.
Exactly. And then that's like, no, you don't tell them Gramps said no. And so anyway, the girls are kind of, just really upset about this. And so I walk out. I do not get a pizza, even though I'll be honest, it would have been nice, but I just couldn't, because then I'm condoning this. Plus the girls are going to be mad at me now. So anyway, I went on back down and just left them and told them they need to get the room cleaned up, because it is the last night. We're packing up, having to get ready to go the next morning early. And so I did learn from a former pastor of mine that sometimes with youth, you just let things ride. And so I just kind of went on back, and they were upset because I was a little bit upset, and it just kind of disappointed them. But we were riding home, and we made our first stop about hour and a half in, and the one main ringleader here, I won't call his name if Noah wants to, he can, but they were just we decided to stop at a different restaurant. He's just ragging Lori, one of our leaders, and and I haven't said anything much about it, but he's just constantly complaining about everything. And so I happened to be walking in the door right behind him, and I just finally said, listen here, pizza boy, you better cool your jets.
Not the pizza boy.
Pizza.
So, and literally one of the funniest things, not funniest things, in the moment I was like, oh no. But I mean, we walk upstairs, and literally what Gramps just explained about him being on the FaceTime call with the girls, it was less than 30 seconds after they were on that FaceTime call, my phone rings, and it's Lori.
Yep.
And she's like,
we have a problem.
She's like, hey.
Oh, where's my pizza?
And I said, the first thing that came out of my mouth when I answered the phone call, I said, it's about the pizza.
She knew immediately.
And she was like, yes, do y'all have us some? And I said, no. I said, we didn't even know they were ordering it. And so like Gramps was saying, it was kind of this downward spiral at this point that was just like, oh my goodness. And there was one moment I was like, we're not going to get into bed until 3:00.
Oh my
and they were like, come on, Gramps, eat a piece. I'm like, I can't. You didn't get any for the girls. You didn't even think about them. I finally told them, I said, this is a no-win situation y'all put me in.
And here's the kicker. They asked for this story, so they're getting the whole story. So we found out the next day.
Oh boy, do I need to get some serious music going?
We found out the next day that the pizza was like $45 or something like that. They had the guy come out and DoorDash it. Well, all that the person who had volunteered to pay for the pizza had on him was a $100 bill.
No.
Yes.
That DoorDasher got very lucky that night and received a hefty tip. They gave him an entire $100 bill for 2 Domino's pizzas.
So this ordeal cost him all the way around.
Oh my God. All right. So first of all, imagine the DoorDash guy. He's like, all right, it's out of college. They want pizza, whatever. rolls up. There's like, 20 guys probably, or it might not have been that many guys, but there's a heap load of guys. All of a sudden you realize, okay, this is not a bunch of college kids, and I'm bringing pizza to them. What's going on? Imagine if he could sit in this room now and hear the story, and he's thinking, all right, now a 13-year-old just gave me a $100 bill, 45, something ain't adding up. No, this guy probably pulled up, and he was like, here's your pizza. See ya.
Well, the whole story, like I said, is just crazy because they're throwing me under the bus all of a sudden. I had nothing to do with this. But then, the more they're trying to talk me into this and get me on, I'm asking these questions like, okay, so how did you even get the pizza? Yeah. Well, we had DoorDash. I said, but how did you get it? Because we're past curfew. They're not supposed to be outside the dorm, period. And we're thinking they're in the living room locked up. And so they're like, they brought it here. I said, so they brought it here to the door. Well,
that's even worse.
Out there in the parking lot. I said, so now not only have you ordered the pizza that I told you not to, you've also broken curfew. You've been outside. If you'd gotten kidnapped, I wouldn't have known where you were because I didn't have no idea.
There's a huge staffer running outside. Wait a minute, get back in the house. Running around. So another question on this: is that where the brownies came from too?
No, the brownies okay. we took with us on the bus.
Hold up, is that those round ones that y'all had? Those brownies are
2-bite brownies. Two-bite brownies for 5 minutes in the microwave.
Not a good combo.
Yeah, and you don't want to condone anything, but kind of, I guess the lesson of this is once you realize this is going south, you probably ought to just stop talking.
Yeah. Well, I've learned too, you were good and smart. You've been doing it long enough that if you had just jumped in the picture, man, they would have had a hoot with it and they'd have loved it. And you'd have loved it too until you realized, oh, wait a minute.
They set me up.
Now the girls have nothing and I look like I've helped the guys out. Then it does become a problem. And I can see how you could just jump into it and be like, yeah, man. It's kind of like Noah. I'd have been like, yeah, man, let me get a piece, especially that Supreme. Which is it's tough, but that's part of leading
too, because the more I began to do the typical older youth minister stuff, I could just see Noah's face changing. Like, oh man, I just messed this up. I've been praising them and helping them.
Yeah, Noah's like, you cannot order pizza. Give me a piece.
I'll just take my piece back to my room.
This is tax. This is what you're taxed for this. It's kind of like parents. I can kind of say this a little bit as you call it the child tax. Like when they go not Christmas. They do like trunk or treat and stuff out here that we do. Mm-hmm. Come home with like a whole bucket, and I'm like, all right, these are my Skittles. I'll take that Tootsie Roll. Give me these Smarties right here, and there's your tax. Thank you for coming.
I'll leave you with the dots.
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Noah knew at the time. It was kind of fun watching that. But when I started talking about, and you didn't order the girls' pizza, I don't know if that was the first time it hit him, but he was like, oh no!
I was like, this is not good.
The crazy
Gramps
part
is right. This is
they could have ordered 2 more pizzas for the girls, gave the dude $100 bill, and he'd have still had a nice $10 tip at the end of all of it. It'd have been perfect. It'd be like, yeah, we got you a couple pieces. Coming on over.
If they had worked it out and was going to do that,
it'd worked out.
They could have paid me the $100, and I would have drove down the street 2 blocks and got it and brought it back to them.
All you see is this white bus, 12:30 in the morning, that taking off to go get pizza. What's he doing? Where's he coming back with?
Pizza.
There it is. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I've been wondering, because everybody's been kind of silent about the whole pizza story. And I was curious if this story would ever actually come out. And Noah, when I texted him, I was like, what kind of stories are we looking at? He says, he's like, they want the pizza story. I said, Noah, give the people what they want.
Which I have to give them credit to. We came home. We weren't going to say anything. We was just dealing with it. But they told their parents. They outed themselves to the parents, everything. I guess they were afraid we were going to tell them. But I'm like, well.
At least they did it to themselves.
So now we can have a little bit of a laugh about it. But at the moment, it was not. It's one of those where in the moment it's not that funny. But
yeah, looking back, you get to laugh about it now. That's why it's on Story Time on Growing Upstairs podcast. All right, well, let's get to this next segment.
We fixing to raise the meter to Aquafina. I need her.
I almost knocked over another microphone.
These mics are falling like flies.
Y'all invited me, but why y'all trying to kill me?
We're trying to take him out with a mic. All right, so we're growing upstairs here. This is Raising the Meter, where we start to kind of dive into some bigger topics and some more fun. Today, we're just going to have some kind of candid conversation about worship. We'll kind of dive a little bit into it, but for the most part, we're just going to talk about worship and music and why do we worship? What's the purpose behind our worship and all of that good stuff. So I know for me and Noah now doing growing upstairs, now doing upstairs worship in the upstairs, I think it's been such a movement, not only for us, but also for our youth, as far as like us singing. And what was it it's 2 weeks ago now when we went to what was the camp we went to?
Camp Cross Point.
Cross Point, and we played down there for them.
Yeah.
It had been a while, really, since we did anything, since really Fuge, when y'all left on that Sunday, we had played then, but it had been a while since we played, and I remember afterwards I was like, man, that was kind of nice. And Noah, I think you even said, man, it was. I didn't realize how much I missed it.
Yeah.
And it's funny how when you get away from worship like that for long enough and you get back into it, you start to do that where you're like, man, I missed that. That was a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of how do you, I'll ask both of you guys kind of the same thing. When you're worshiping, what is your mindset behind it? Like, why are you worshiping when we're worshiping? And I know that's kind of a deep thing because, I mean, it can go as deep as you want. But when you're worshiping, why do we worship?
Mm-hmm. I can start off. I mean, I think there's different aspects of why, we worship, and personally, like my personal feelings towards worship. And I think there's a different aspect of it of why do I lead worship and why do I worship? And I think there's a point where both of those meet, because as when I help to lead worship, I also am worshiping, and I don't want it to be one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm up on stage, look at me, do this. That's not it at all. I want to worship first and foremost the Lord, and then also allow Him, as I worship Him, to help lead others into worship. And I think that's one of my big hearts with why I worship in general, is just to honor the Lord and just to see others honor the Lord through worship, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, it's the same thing. It's a big difference when you are leading worship as compared to just being a part of worship, both of which are meaningful. It doesn't mean it takes anything away from the other. But when you're standing in a pew and you're worshiping, it is different than when you have a guitar on your shoulder or you have a microphone in your face, to where, for me at least, and I've been on the praise team for a long time, and I've had the blessing of being able to play for a long time now, and being in it is, to me, it's there's such a strong connection there where you are creating. And one of the biggest things, like you said right beforehand, the prayer that I always say is, hey, all glory to you, not to me, because that's the last thing I think any of us want to do, is get up there and say, hey, look at me, look at us singing. Because first of all, I can't sing that good anyway. I'm real good in the shower. I'm real good by a campfire and in my truck by myself at singing. But when I get in front of other people, I don't feel like I'm that good. But I still think, we're worshiping, we're making a joyful sound, for the Lord. And I think that's such a big thing too.
Yeah. And, y'all are challenging me. Never thought I'd do a podcast. Probably wouldn't be doing it unless I'm here with y'all. But
he said, if y'all keep hitting me with a mic, I'm done. I'm out. Right. This is my last one.
But I do appreciate y'all doing this, and the way you've titled it, Growing in the Upstairs. And I guess as y'all mentioned it to me a minute ago, just in a little bit of time it took us to get set up, is I think we grow in worship too. The growing in the upstairs is great. This growing thing is, we should be constantly growing in our Christian life. And, just like we mature in our physical life and should constantly be growing, we should in our spiritual life. And so for me, being a little bit y'all's senior, I grew up in a time when it was just Southern gospel music, and there's nothing wrong with that, hymns. But I think even back then, now that I look back, it was the times I enjoyed it the most was, and I think you maybe kind of said a little bit ago, is when you're in it. I can listen to Southern gospel if the person singing it feels it, believes it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what worship has come to me. And I don't think I realized that in my teen years and even some of my adult years until I got here to First Baptist. And not that I hadn't had great youth groups before, ministries, but this is the one that's really challenged me the most. But it's also been one of the biggest ones, growing faith, challenges, but blessing. We've gone to Passion. And just seeing 18 to 25-year-olds just
stadium
sold
full.
out, full-on worship. And I think I grew in worship in that aspect, to realize that, and I think even our kids have said it sometimes, is that if we're not careful, we just get into the music, we get into the beat, we get into the rhythm, just how it makes us feel. But if we don't stop and think about what we're singing, we lose the whole part of worship. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm at with it now, is that I've changed. I've grown in mine in worship, in the fact that, okay, I'm not just singing these words, but I'm really thinking about what they're saying about God, about my relationship to God. And I've learned that whether it's at Passion or if it's at Extreme or wherever we're at with our youth groups now, even though it's more of the contemporary modern day worship, which is great too and fine, we enjoy it most when the person that's on the stage is singing as though they believe it. And I think that's what y'all are trying to do too, is you lead in worship is, anybody can stand up there and maybe have a good voice and sing or say they're leading in worship, but if they're not feeling it, if they're not believing it, then it's just kind of missing that aspect that we need. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, well, it's funny when Brother Bruce first came and we kind of all met as a choir at one point. We had asking time, like where you could ask a question and say something. And I actually spoke up and said, there are some Sundays when I come to church and I'm just not in it. I just don't feel. Right. I don't feel the presence moving. What am I supposed to do about that? And Brother Bruce, kind of the same way, in a challenging way, it was like, well, you got to evaluate yourself when you come in here, because it's not necessarily the circumstance as much as it's your heart. And back to us talking about a heart check, I had one where it was like, okay, if I'm showing up and I'm immediately like, I'm not in this, I'm not going to be in it. Yeah. But if I show up and go, okay, God, let's see what you're going to do today. Even if it's a song that I don't necessarily think that I connect with, there have been time and time again over the past few months where we'll sing a song where I'm like, I don't really care for this song, but I don't go into it with that mindset where all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I hear the words as opposed to just hearing the music. And I know it sounds kind of silly. It's like, what are you talking about? Words are in there with the music. It's like, yeah, but there's a difference. There are so many times I've sat back and just any song, heard the music, but not heard the words. Right. And when you start to truly dive in and focus on the words that you're actually worshiping, about, you start to realize, okay, am I truly worshiping here or not? And kind of like you said there, when you're starting to pay attention to the words, what does the Bible say about worship? I looked up one here from John 4:24. It says, God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth. And there's two parts to that, one of which is spirit, which I think is somewhat like we were talking about. You have to be in it. Again, like for me, example-wise, is if I'm coming in and I'm not in it, my mind's not in the right place, and I'm not thinking about, what are we singing? You're not spiritually there. You're not spiritually worshiping at all. You're just making a noise as opposed to a joyful noise. You guys have any kind of thing on that too?
I think I was going to add to that like we said, and I think I looked at it and watched people lead us in worship through these places we've been, watching y'all grow as you do the upstairs worship. But I also realized, and it's where I grew in it, is that, okay, I'm not going to be a praise team leader. I'm not, God's gifted me in other things, so I'm not going to be up there leading in worship like that. But I also know that our churches, if we're not careful, for our youth, for our adults, we can stand out there in the pew, and we should be worshiping with whoever's leading us. Of course, we need them to believe it, feel it, show us how. But, I also think we miss out if we're not worshiping in the pew, because there are other people watching us. And again, it's the same thing. Okay, Gramps is over there. He says we should worship God. But if I'm standing there with my hands in my pocket, not moving my lips, not even trying to sing, then they're like, okay, so worship's not really that important then. And I think we forget sometimes that even if we're not on the stage, we're still maybe leading someone else in worship that's watching us in the pew, and they're looking to see, I think, again, are we in it? Do we believe what we're singing? Yeah. And I think that's why we miss worship, is because we just get used to singing those words without paying attention to what they say.
Being somebody who's been on stage, for a long time now, you're right. There are sometimes, there's people behind you in a pew, unless you're a back row Baptist like me sometimes and sitting in the back. But us on stage, we also, in a way, I don't want to use this word incorrectly, but we almost benefit from seeing who is in the pews worshiping as well. Now, we also have to understand that we have to let go of that. And if we just worship, regardless of what we see going on in front of us, if we just let go and worship truly, give it our all, then it will fit. Everybody outside will see that as well, and you will start to kind of see that change. But there are those Sundays you'll go out and you start to sing a song that you're pretty passionate about, and you look out and you go, man, some of these people are getting it, but man, there's a lot of people that look like they're ready to go to sleep, or they wish they could be anywhere but here.
I think
on a Sunday.
I think a lot of it comes back down to that heart check that we've talked about before, like you were mentioning already. And one song lyric that pops into my mind when just kind of listening to y'all's conversation a little bit is I know it's Cody Carnes, but I think it's Nothing Else, I think is the song. But he says, I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda, and I'm sorry when I've just sang another song. And he says that, and you kind of move past that part in the song, but when you stop and you look back on it, there's a lot of substance to that line, and I think that's something that we all can go into a worship service wherever it may be, away or here at First Baptist Camilla, and say, did I come to church today and just sing another song? Did I just sing along because that's what I'm supposed to do, or was I in it in spirit and in truth?
I think also that we have that aspect of it that, and we can get to this place just from the tradition. You read the scripture, worship Him in spirit and truth, and then we have our traditions. The Bible warns against that. We get so caught up in our traditions that we can fail to worship. But I think the other thing to point out is not only are we leading others to worship Him, but if we're not careful, we'll miss the whole point of this is worship Him. And so our worship changes when we're singing those songs if we're picturing Him. But sometimes what's Holden going to think about me? What's Noah going to think about me? And I forget to worship the Creator of the universe. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's worship Him for what He's done for us. And that changes worship a lot too, if you can keep that focus.
Yeah, and that was one of the conversations too that we've had, is getting out of that comfort zone. And it is a hard thing to do, especially with the kids that we deal with now. Not the kids in general, but the youth group, which is one of the reasons that I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to help with the youth, because it was a changing time in my life where it was, I had to step out of my comfort zone, and now we have to ask them to do the same thing. You can't care about what Sally next to you thinks. You can't care about what John next to you. Can't even care about what your boyfriend thinks that's sitting with you. You're here to praise God. You're not here to praise anybody that's in the room with you. You're not here to worship anybody who's standing in the room. Nobody. It's for one person and one person alone. And if we could ever get over that hump of understanding that and truly worship, and I think we've got quite a few kids who they've figured that out. And it's awesome when we do have these, sessions where we sing and stuff as upstairs worship, to witness that. And we've seen it at church on Sundays too. Singing too is such a moving thing. And it's not to make it a movement. Like I said at the start, I kind of used that incorrectly. It's not a movement. It is just a feeling of being as wrapped up in worship as you can be. And the songs playing now that you're talking about, Nothing Else, that is a good one.
Yeah.
I
just kept popping in my head.
It's such a strong thing. But I mean, to me, hang on, I'll get this music pulled back down. Sorry, Gramps. Gramps doesn't have any headphones on, so he has no clue anything's playing right now. He's just kind of shaking his head like, please don't hit me with another microphone.
Yeah, but I believe it or not, I do know the song, and I do like the song.
It's good. I'm caught up in your presence. I mean, it's just, it's such a good song. So one other part in this, what is your favorite part about worship, whether it's, singing or playing ourselves or just in a crowd with everybody else? Do you guys have a part where it's like, my favorite is this, and it could be kind of reiterating what we've already said. For me, when we are playing, it is being able to not only in myself just worship and kind of let go, but it's when we have that time where everybody, and great example, just a couple of weeks ago when we did the Camp Cross Point, it was a small chapel. It was not a very big chapel. But I mean, Noah and I could have turned both microphones off and that just let the music in that room feel it, because when the Holy Spirit shows up, we'll have church. Come on. Because I mean, that's good, Lord. It was when you're worshiping and you start getting chill bumps. Yeah, I mean, stuff's moving.
Again, I guess I'll come back to. I've seen it other places like you have, and what you're talking about here. We're beginning to see it locally because our kids are seeing it other Extreme when we go there with them. Passion Conference, we do that when we see them coming back and doing it. So we're beginning to experience here. But I guess for me, like you said, is I love it all. I mean, and we can go in the, concerts can be pretty loud, pretty out there, pretty strong, and that's always great. But, at different times in the set, they will drop all the instruments out. They'll just kind of maybe just a little bit of chording on the keyboard or something, and especially one of the greatest for me, and you see it in so much more of a huge set as the Mercedes-Benz Stadium at Passion, and they drop back, and what is it, 60,000 year that we had of 18 to 25-year-olds, and you realize underneath that loud music that's been playing, and you hear it, but you really get to hear 60,000 voices just singing out to God. And I think the reason I like that the most is because I realize that we're in the moment. They're not just singing the lyrics. You can tell by the sound. You can tell it's almost like an angelic sound in there, that just these voices singing out, maybe worthy are you, God, and just it's just awesome.
You got anything to add to that?
Y'all literally took everything I was going to say.
I was thinking of when we were in the chapel thing, and I put this in my notes because I got to make sure. Will you be worshiping so good you want to throw your guitar and break something in the name of Jesus? Because it is fun. I live, one thing that I also have to understand, and in worship, something that I do enjoy. We did this 2 weeks ago when we went out to eat. But the upbeat songs, you're like, oh man, it's upbeat, and you're kind of, we'll be like when we were eating dinner, we were talking about, or we were singing one of the songs we had just done on Sunday. I don't remember which one it was. It was Lied On, Cheated. That one. Yeah. We're sitting there eating.
Long as I got King
Long
Jesus.
as I got King, we're sitting there cutting up about that, the upbeat songs. But it's so easy to just get lost in when things slow down. And it's generally always the invitation time where that's the reason most time it is slowed down. It's that invitation time that you really just kind of settle down. Mm-hmm. And if paying attention, that's when, to me, the bigger moments happen. Not that can in big songs, because big songs I think they do too. But
yeah,
I'm also like I can sit there and listen to acoustic music all day, and I'll listen to an acoustic song before I go like playing a game or something. I'm like, got to get in the mood. All right, turn on something real slow. And I'm like, fired up, ready to run through a wall. And it's like, what were you listening to? I don't know. Gratitude, probably. But anyways, y'all got anything else you want to add to worship here before we jump out? I mean, it's been it feels like it's short, but it isn't. We've been rolling for almost 45 minutes with exception to taking Gramps out with a microphone 3 times there.
It's been a good day.
It has been a good day. I'm looking forward to next week when Gramps he's gonna be like, I'm not coming back on that, guys. I can't feel my lip from the last time this microphone hit me in it. But anyways, well, Noah, where can everybody kind of reach us on our socials and everything again as we get ready to wrap up here?
That's right. Don't forget at GrowingUpstairs on Instagram, and I believe it's time for another dad joke, isn't it?
Yeah, I got another one for you, Gramps. I wanted to check with you beforehand. Do you have anything you want to add before we jump out of here?
I appreciate y'all having me tonight. Enjoyed it, and we want to keep growing in our worship as well as everything else.
That's right. I was thinking about this too, and I meant to say this earlier. And we touched on it a little bit, but the growing upstairs, not only is it a play on, and I think God kind of worked this in perfectly, because the more and more I started thinking about it, when we're talking about growing upstairs, not only the play on words because of upstairs, which is our youth group, right, but it's all about growing up or going upstairs, growing up and all those things. So there's so many different ways that you can kind of play on it. But I got a dad joke for you guys. How did Jesus make his coffee?
I don't know, Holden.
He brewed it. Come on.
Okay.
Come on. Well, you guys, make sure you guys keep growing upstairs. We'll check in with you guys next week.